As a trucker, can you carry a firearm in your truck? This is a question that I get asked a ton of times every single week. But today I'm going to uncover everything so that you won't have any issues. We're going to be breaking down the federal laws, state laws, FMCSA rules, and company policies. Because let's be honest, if you get this wrong as a trucker, it could cost you your CDL, money, and even your freedom in some cases. So stick with me all the way throughout the end because I want to give you 5 best practices that can save you from being caught in a bad situation. The Federal Firearms Owners Protection Act. This act says that you can legally transport a firearm in your truck if it's unloaded, locked up, and out of reach. I know, it sounds counterproductive, but that's just what it is. Gone are the days of just having your Glock with your 50-round drum mag, sitting on your lap. You'll be happy to hear that there is something called the Safe Passage Clause that protects you when traveling through a state with stricter gun laws as long as you're going from one legal point to another. The big catch with this is that if you stop in a heavily restricted state and you're not just passing through, depending on the situation, you still could get in trouble or even arrested. Quick example, a driver with a legal firearm in Texas who parks overnight in New Jersey could still be in violation. And I get so many truckers that say to me, well, what if I just keep my firearm in my sleeper? And the answer I have for you is that that does not reach the locked and out of reach standards in strict states. To tell you flat out, the FMCSA does not ban firearms in commercial motor vehicles. That is a myth for as long as I've been hearing it. There is no federal regulation that prohibits a CDL holder from carrying, as long as they're legally allowed to possess a firearm. But DOT inspections are about safety and compliance, not gun rights and not gun laws. If you're legal federally in whatever state you're in, DOT is not writing you up for a firearm. The real problem comes down to company policy. And I know a lot of people get super up in arms about the company policy thing because they say things like, my safety comes first before a company. And hey, I completely agree with you. But some companies flat out tell drivers that they're not allowed to have firearms inside the company trucks. And it's the right of that company to say that to drivers. Pretty much, if you're a driver and you don't like that, then don't work for that company. Go find another company that will allow it. Because I agree with you, your safety is important. In short, FMCSA did not ban firearms in commercial motor vehicles, but your company just might, and they are legally allowed to. And like I said, that triggers a lot of drivers, but many large carriers that I know of, they actually prohibit firearms in their company trucks. That may be frustrating because you may very well legally own your firearm, but the company says you can't have it in their truck. And in most cases, it's a condition of employment. Swift, Schneider, JB Hunt, and others have strict no-gun policies. If you're caught with a firearm inside of their trucks, there's almost a zero tolerance thing. You're probably going to get in big trouble. So again, I would just make sure to check with your company first, even if you legally possess that firearm. For my owner-operators out there, the rule is pretty much your own, but you still have to follow the state and federal laws as well. You just don't have to deal with the boss telling you, hey, no firearms allowed inside my truck. And I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty sweet deal if you ask me. But that's pretty much why a ton of company drivers feel very stuck when it comes to the firearms inside of truck thing. Because they're legally, federally, and sometimes even by the state, but their company is just flat out saying no. So what happens if you get pulled over in a state that's stricter than where you started? That's where things can get messy. So let's take a look at some state laws. Permissive states like Texas and Florida often allow concealed or even open carry, especially with permits. So if you live in those places, you drive in those places, you're employed in those places, and your company allows for it, you're gonna be a-okay. Keep in mind, if you're a company driver, you gotta be careful, and I still recommend you ask the company. Restrictive states like California, New Jersey, New York can have some, pretty strict rules. In California, it must be unloaded in a locked container, not glove box or center console. In New Jersey and New York, they are extremely strict. Even with reciprocity, drivers have been arrested if not fully compliant. Reciprocity is pretty much when concealed carry permits only work if that state recognizes yours. Some do, many don't. Now time for the biggest gray area in this whole firearm and truck thing. Sleeper berth. So many drivers just assume that since the truck and the sleeper berth is their home, then they can just keep the firearm in their sleeper. That's not true. I'm gonna explain it right now though. In super restrictive states, that just won't hold up because the cab is still considered a vehicle, it's not a residence. And I know what you're gonna say, it is my home. I do live in the truck. I'm not saying you're wrong, but by statute and by law, the sleeper of a truck is not an extension of an actual brick and mortar house. And there have been many arguments about this, and pretty valid arguments as well. I completely understand where truckers are coming from. Some truckers do actually live in those trucks. They don't have apartments or houses or anything like that. They're actually living on the road. So it should make sense that that is their home, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. So really be careful with that one because I've heard of people getting jammed up in all different states over it. So to the truckers that say, well, it's my truck, it's my home, I can have whatever I want in there, sorry to burst your bubble, it's just not true. Comment down below why you agree or disagree with this. To the people out there that are just saying, well, don't ask, don't tell, Do you. Do what you gotta do. But at the same time, are you risking getting fired from your job if they don't allow firearms inside the truck? I personally would not do that, but again, do what you gotta do. And as far as officer safety goes, because I know someone's gonna mention that somewhere in the comments, again, us DOT cops, we're not out there to be searching, sleepers and trucks looking for firearms. If you're calm, cool, respectable as always, everything's gonna be just fine. A couple weeks ago, I actually had a driver, as I'm doing the inspection, he actually pulled me aside and was like, hey, just so you know, I do, own a legal firearm. It is inside of the truck. My company allows it. And he pretty much just asked me, hey, like, how does Vermont treat that? Are you uncomfortable with that? And just asking all the normal questions, which is really kind of him because he really didn't have to do that. He didn't even have to tell me. But the fact that he told me was pretty cool. And no, I was not worried about the firearm. In some states, I have heard of cops even telling people, hey man, if you, have it, just keep it to yourself. Let me wrap up the inspection and just, get you going. Because some people, I guess, don't even want to know if a truck driver has one. But again, that is a toss-up. Let me know in the comments if you let inspectors know if you're carrying a firearm in your truck or not. So what if your company or certain states don't really allow you to have firearms in your trucks? How are you going to protect yourself? That's the biggest question. How are you going to protect yourself? Well, let's talk about that. So here are just a couple common pitfalls that truckers face with this whole thing. They just assume that they're all good with whatever states they're driving through is going to be good with them having firearms in the truck. They don't check a map. They don't check with the states or anything like that. That's going to get you jammed up. The second thing is that some truckers are just keeping the firearm loaded right in their sleeper, underneath their seat, or in a glove box. Again, those things do not check the box to be okay. I can't stop everything, but I'm just telling you how it is. Thing 3, a lot of drivers enter into what we would call restricted zones. So things like military bases, federal facilities, and ports, a lot of times do not allow firearms in there at all. So make sure if you're going to one of those places, you have your stuff squared away because it can make for a not so great time. And the fourth thing is when people are crossing into Canada or Mexico with the firearms without any paperwork or proper paperwork or legal documents. That right there, that single one can set you up for a very bad time and just a lot of legal trouble that you don't need. Quick example, several drivers have been arrested in New Jersey for stopping with the firearm accessible even though they were just passing through. So back to what we talked about earlier. If you are just passing through with a lot of states, that is fine. But as soon as you stop for a couple hours or stop for a couple nights, you can be in violation, hence the New Jersey thing. Now I'm going to give you 5 best practices to help you out here. Always keep your firearms unloaded, locked, and stored out of reach. So just have it locked away inside of a case somewhere inside the CMV that's out of reach. 2 is know state laws along your route. Check the reciprocity maps before you even leave. 3, check your company handbook. I know you might not want to, but if you want to stay compliant, safe, and protect your job, just do it. Thing number 4, if you can, avoid sensitive areas. So those sensitive areas are things like military bases, ports, and federal facilities. I know sometimes you don't pick where you have to go, but I'm just saying if you can't avoid those places, if you carry firearms and all that, I would just avoid those places altogether. And thing number 5, document everything. Your permits, your licensing, your training, everything for that firearm. Have it all with you at all times. With those 5 things I just told you, you're going to be good to go and ready to rock on the road if you do have a firearm. Here's the bottom line. There is no one-size-fits-all answer for this question, but what I will tell you is that FMCSA does not ban firearms inside of trucks. Like we said multiple times, I want to send that point home. Federal law gives you some protection. FMCSA isn't stopping you, but your company, the states you travel through, and how you store that firearm all decide whether you're in the clear or whether you're not. Comment down below what state you're in and if they're okay with you having firearms inside of your CMV. My trucking fam, I want to hear from you. Do you think drivers should legally be allowed to just carry their firearms inside their trucks no matter what state they're in, no matter what company they work for? Drop it down in the comments below. Also, let me know if you've ever been stopped in your truck with a firearm and how did that whole experience go? Do you tell the officer that you have one right off the bat? Do you not say anything? I want to know. If you've learned anything from this video, go ahead and like, subscribe, share the video with all your trucking friends because I drop videos every single week on how to keep you compliant and how to keep you safe. Stay safe, keep rolling.